What's going on, everybody? So today we're doing something a little bit different. I can't wait to start talking about builds and such and getting ready for the beta that's coming up soon. But this video was linked to me in my Discord, and it is by Hog here. Stop this complete garbage about Diablo 4. For those of you that don't know who Hog is, he's basically a Diablo 3, Diablo in general content creator that I actually stumbled upon a couple months ago. But this is one of his rants here about a comment that I put in my video, not necessarily directed towards me. In fact, as the warning says here, it's directed towards Rax. I got about a minute and a half into it and I wanted to watch it here, but I want to comment on something before we dive into it. The reason I'm making this video is because this type of video, this type of sentiment towards the community, towards the game, granted, I will say there's a warning. It's probably meant to a little bit be of a hyperbole because he was streaming, he was, making a video, etc. So I have to keep that in mind. But in general, this type of attitude, I think is negative and probably just not good for the game and the community. And this is exactly what this video that he was getting set off by was about, was that it's titled Diablo 4 has an irreparable problem. And basically I go in there to say, hey, there's a lot of hate towards the game. There's a lot of hate towards all the developers. There's a lot of hate in general towards each other. And then this video kind of exemplifies that. And I think that that is just not a good thing. But enough of my rant. Before the rant, we're going to dive in and see what's going on.
Warning, the following content is that of a hog rant. While entertaining to most, some select snowflakes and Rax fanboys may be offended. Viewer discretion advised.
So I want to comment on that one just real quick. If you need a discretion warning at the very beginning of your video, granted that could be also a joke for what you're about to hear, that's probably not a good thing. In pertaining to, I guess you could say, another content creator or person or community member that just holds a different opinion than you do. We're not talking about unnecessary hate or anything like that. We're talking about a different opinion towards a class, and that's a little bit different. Damage.
I'm gonna have a fucking meltdown. You know, I talked about earlier in stream, the problem? Here's the fucking proof right fucking now. This is the shit I'm talking about. Why do you get so fucking hard on Rax? This is why. Look. This is a reference to his stupid ass fucking meme build.
So this is exactly the comment. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit more context. I actually have the video pulled up here, and I'll talk about it. The most upvoted comment is, I think, a little bit of a meme, but honestly, a lot of people actually agree with this, and that is the Druid Paragon board should have plus 17 damage, and it has 1.9k likes. It is a meme, so I'm not gonna read too much into this, but I think a lot of people actually are just hardcore flaming Blizzard for the Druid imbalance in terms of the leveling compared to some of their classes. The second one here, the end game will be like getting 50. So basically, I sort of agree with Rax in his sentiment, which is that I felt the Druid leveling process was much more difficult than the other four classes rather. I do. I think that it was. And that doesn't mean that the class is necessarily bad, which I do agree with, or I don't agree with that, because that was the conclusion a lot of people made. Like, oh, I just can't play the game. It's just trash. It does no damage. That is, I hard disagree with that. I actually made a whole video about that. But in this specific video, I was talking about this comment from the endgame video that Diablo posted and how it was super disliked. Again, a lot of hate going around. And what's awkward about this is Hog here, he's mad about that meme, or rather the joke that was basically turned into a joke from his video, because initially Rax wasn't actually memeing. It was just a fact of the matter. And then Asmongold reacted, and then it turned into this massive meme where everyone just, whenever they talk about Druid, it's plus 17 damage, right? Well, then he's basically calling out Rax for this meme, because he had a bad build or a meme build in his opinion. And I just think that that's super, again, negative, and it doesn't help anything.
17 damage fucking Druid? And so this asshole is fucking commenting on it. It's got 1.9 thousand upvotes or likes. And then this guy has actually included it in his video. How many views? 6.8 thousand. So all 21,000 subs of his are going to be exposed to this. You see what I'm talking about? And then it snowballs into an effect to where it gets back to Blizzard and the whole community goes, the Druid's trash, because of one motherfucker made a goddamn meme about it because he didn't know how to play the goddamn Druid. Mr. X.
All right. You can see it's already getting a little heated here. So he's absolutely right in that it does spread quickly. Rax is one of the, if not the biggest Diablo, most notable name, right? Kind of like the, I guess you could say, figurehead, as well as, not necessarily figurehead, but the face of Maxroll, right? That's kind of what I think of. And Maxroll is a very prominent Diablo / ARPG, website. A lot of people go there for it. But when you have an opinion about it and you're in that kind of, I guess you say, pedestal or in that field, you're going to have that information spread very quickly. Keep in mind that he did not create the meme. Rax did not create the meme. Asmongold reacted and everyone else made the meme out of that video. Okay. Asmon kind of initiated that meme process. So all Rax was saying was that the leveling process was kind of bad. And the Druid didn't feel nearly as good to play as the other classes. And honestly, I agree with that sentiment. The problem that Hog's highlighting here is that it spreads and it amplifies to Druid's trash and it needs a buff. And I do agree that that could potentially be a problem, but I don't think it's the fault of whoever's making the video or making a comment. That is just the nuance that viewers do not understand, right? Hey, the leveling process is bad. And then they take that as like, dude, Druid's trash, right? We're level 25. We don't know the end game builds. Heck, I've even done some more end game beta builds at level 25 that I showcased, and he was already doing a lot better as I was able to kind of work through the build. So again, I don't think that's Rax's fault.
Expert God, King of Diablo. I played a fucking Druid. It wiped ass. I played with other guys that had Druids that almost one-shotted the fucking boss. That level 35 fucking boss. So, like, that's why I get so heated, because this shit spreads like a fucking cancer, and it needs to be stopped. Stop this bullshit, lies, spreading shit around the fucking internet, because you suck at the goddamn game.
So this is exactly what I was talking about. I did not watch this far, but that is hilarious. Wow. This is, in my opinion, way worse of a problem than what Rax is doing. I don't think what Rax is doing is a problem at all. In fact, this is literally highlighted. The video that he is watching, it's titled Diablo 4 has an irreparable problem, as I show here, okay? The problem is that there's a lot of hate going on in the community, and this is literally part of it. So I think it's funny that, he's making a video calling out someone else for spreading negativity, when in the video himself he is insulting the creator. I just think that's kind of a bad look, personally. But I think that there's a reasonable point of criticism that can be made about Rax's commentary, right? And if you want to call out, okay, there wasn't enough nuance, right? You just flamed the Druid's damage. Fair. It is what it is, and that's what happened. But again, I don't think it's Rax's fault for not necessarily, like, I guess you'd say, calling out the people that are misinterpreting what he said. All he was saying was that in the beta process, from 0 or 1 to 25, the leveling process was pretty bad. And at the end of the day, it felt worse than all other classes by a large margin. That is the same experience that I think most of us had. In fact, even Hog said it right there. I played a Druid. It was garbage. Or he said wipe like toilet paper, right? And other people did really well. If you play a sorcerer or you play a necro, you didn't have these problems. If you played anything, you were killing stuff. If you play a barb, if you play a druid, you had those problems where you had situations where it was bad. That in of itself is a problem. And I think that's exactly what Rax is trying to call out, which is that you should be able to play whatever build and not have to min-max it for the classes to be good. And that was my point that I made in a couple of my videos, which is that although I think this meme was a little bit out of hand, which is what I said, this is a meme, I'm not going to take too much stock into it. There is viable criticism about the Druid and how the leveling process is pretty mediocre. That doesn't mean the druid is trash. It just means that it's worse than the other classes. And that in of itself could use a buff.
That's why I have a fucking problem with Rax right there. You want to know why? And that's bullshit. And if you fucking defend that and you defend lying about how much you fucking stream, then you can fucking go on and watch his shit. It's made for you. Because that's bullshit. You see it right here. I don't care, dude. People don't see. See? I'm not taking it as a fucking joke. And there's 2,000 of them that don't take it as a joke.
Well, I wouldn't say that. So, this is totally fair if you don't take it as a joke. A lot of people are very passionate about Diablo 4. And I will say, regardless of what you say about the hate and the negativity that perspirates throughout the community, every single person that's hating cares. I firmly believe this. And I think that in general, logically speaking, a lot of people would agree with that same sentiment, which is that if you are riled up enough to get this mad or to potentially make a video about this, or even do things like I'm doing, which is trying to quell the hate, it's because I care about the community, I care about the game, I care about all that stuff, right? And I have no doubt that he cares about Diablo 4. And so he believes that this is a negative thing within the community. And I would say that it's probably true, right? Spreading this type of information or wild spreading this misinformation is probably, not that good, which is why I try to quell that myself. But attacking a content creator because of that is not the way to go, in my opinion. But let's continue.
And this fucking guy puts it in. You got to be careful about shit like that. Did he come out and say, I'm just joking? No, he fucking said multiple times that the druid was trash. And then
he did say that, I don't know if he used that word in particular. I can't remember. I did watch part of his video. I believe he said something along those lines. And I do know that his video, he literally said, I picked up Hurricane Spell as soon as I unlocked it, and it literally did 17 damage. That is where it came from. So it wasn't like, oh, the druid is trash and this is why, because all the skills are bad. He was claiming that he wanted to play a Hurricane Druid, one of the big prominent kind of themes of the druid, and it was not good. And absolutely, it was not good. There are other builds, like Landslide Druid was pretty good for me. There was a couple of Werebear and Werewolf builds that I thought were decent, but the Hurricane I could not get to work at all in the beta. And I think that's totally fair criticism, right? If you want to play whatever you want to play, and you have a situation where, boom, I can't play whatever I want to play because the skill's not good, I think you have a problem.
During his little 8-page Mickey Mouse cocksucking fucking routine that he did, it was talking about the druid. Oh, that's all that they fucking buffed out of my list that I give them. They didn't do anything to the druid. Oh, okay. Yes.
So he's referring to the recent patch changes, the skill changes. There are more that we don't know about, but actually I agree with Rax on this. I'm surprised they didn't buff druid more and do something cool with it. It kind of reminds me of the Crusader in Diablo 3 when the season started, season of 28. I was like, right, they didn't do anything with Crusader. It should have gotten a buff. I have 100% no reason why it should not have gotten a buff. You need to put some more power in the early game processes. Yes, you shouldn't balance around it in terms of like end game builds, but there's easy ways to tune it, right? For example, the level scaling. You can tune the lower levels damage numbers way higher, or you could potentially give something like the Barbarian got, which is just flat 10% damage reduction, right? It's surprising to me that they gave the Barbarian some really massive things, and they didn't really do much for the Druid, in my opinion. So I do think that I was surprised, and I think Rax was perfectly right here in this situation where, when you have a situation where a lot of people, the common sentiment is that the Druid is weaker than the other classes, and they don't really get too much. It's kind of strange.
Stop the I mean, I hate to sound like the government, because that's what the government always says, stop the misinformation. But stop the bullshit. It's not misinformation, it's bullshit. It's lies. How about stop giving them a pass? How about stop just fucking letting it go and comment on every fucking thing they say and call it the fuck out? Because nobody has a problem calling me out for shit that I do or shit that I say or saying or questioning something like, hey, I don't think.
Now, here's something. I actually agree with Hog here. I don't agree with the way he's doing it, but calling out people is always good. Not in a rude way, but hey, if Rax is very good at Diablo 3. There's no doubt about that. He's played the game for thousands of hours. He has, or is part of the most, I guess you could say, prestigious group in the Diablo scene, in my opinion. And that ends up giving all of them a sort of shield of immunity. And what I mean by this is they got a shield pylon, guys. They got a shield pylon on. Because what happens is, for example, in Diablo 3, I made a video titled GR90 is not the max loot. Okay. And in that video, I basically highlight how GR90, you have a potential to drop not 12 legendaries. You can drop 10 to 12 legendaries, but it's not guaranteed to be legendary all the time. Sometimes you drop rares and sometimes you drop magic affinity items. Well, in that video, I had so many people just say, yeah, that's not true. Maxroll says something opposite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which, in fact, as I did further testing, it is true that GR100 was the max potential of loot as far as all the tests I've done. And what ends up happening is on GR100, you can drop 11 or 12 legendaries every single time. It's going to be legendaries or set items. Whereas on GR90, you can drop 10 to 12 legendaries, but sometimes you drop 1 to 2 rare items. Whereas GR100, you only drop 1 rare item potentially, so not 2. So GR100 is the max loot. And a lot of people just tried their hardest to disprove me or critique me because it was against what they've heard from other creators that are in the space. And that sort of like immunity like level where I'm trying to show you all data about what I'm saying here, and then immediately people just try to critique me or insult me, in fact, due to this, is usually, again, around this whole hate idea, is usually a bad thing. At the same time, I don't think that Rax is dumb. I don't think Rax is bad at the game. I don't think Rax is anywhere near kind of what he claims here. I think that his extremely in-depth feedback documents, I think that's actually a great thing. Honestly, if I had the time to go ahead and write everything down and paragraph by paragraph go through and critique the game, I would do that because I actually think that that's very helpful. And at the end of the day, it's his opinion, right? And I think that's totally fine. And you shouldn't be like super angry over someone's opinion unless that opinion legitimately is attacking someone else. At least that's my opinion.
I think it's possible for you to stream that much time and still be a content creator and still have all these other obligations, because I'm a content creator too. I know what it takes to make content. So like, just to call it out and say, let's just be honest with the community. We already know you're.
So he's calling out Rax for lying about how much he's streaming. Who?
You're still a good player. You don't have to fucking lie, boost 20 hours of playtime. It is what it is. Stop the fucking bullshit. This is bullshit. There was absolutely positively no motherfucking reason right after the beta to come out and make a video about this druid does 17 damage. It sucks. And
I disagree. First off, about the lying thing, that is a huge assumption. You want to talk about like lies and BS that he's saying? That is hardcore, nothing he can comment on, right? He doesn't know how much Rax has played. At the end of the day, if Rax says he played 150 hours, I'm going to trust him that he says he plays 150 hours. I don't see why we wouldn't. Heck, the guy streams like all the time. All his gameplay is basically on Twitch. In fact, while I was playing Diablo 4 and streaming it, I saw Rax streaming it as well. So the proof is honestly out there in the world. And at the same time, there's the endgame beta, which I can't really comment on my experience, and they can't comment on their experience. They don't really know how much, we don't really know how much time they might have had in the game. So I think that's like super outlandish. But on top of that, I don't know why he would say that at all. And at the same time, Rax was making a very reasonable critique about the druid, which is that the hurricane spell did literally 17 damage per tick when he cast it, and it was super low. This is just a fact. It's not a lie. It is just a fact. If you had tested the druid as you're saying that he should have, you would know that the druid literally did 17 damage with the hurricane. It's a meme, and I don't like how far it's spread in the sentiment. But at the same time, the meme is not necessarily a meme. It's true. It is true. And so I don't like calling someone a liar. I think that's so disingenuous.
Seen it all over the fucking internet now. And it spreads like a cancer because the guy has 100,000 subs. He has 41 million channel views. He's got to reach.
Yeah.
People fucking hear what he says a lot more than they hear what I say. So it's easy if I had that kind of channel reach,
A lot more than they hear what I say too.
I could go and say Diablo 4 sucks, and 10% of my viewer base would agree with me. That's a lot of people, but that's a problem when it's spread this far.
It has
Sorry to get on my damn
1.9K
soapbox. That shit
likes.
makes me
It
fucking
is a meme,
hot.
so I'm not gonna. So I think that's the but he's absolutely right in that no matter what you say as a content creator, you're gonna have a dedicated fan base. As you say, about 10%. I think that's probably a reasonable amount. I would probably go a little bit lower, maybe 1 to 5% if you're doing something outlandish, which is why I usually try to push back on some sentiments again, but it's just an opinion. So I'm not insulting them for having that opinion. I just disagree with it, and here's the reasons why. Right. But he's absolutely right in that Rax has a lot of reach, and when you make a video and you talk about your opinion, it is going to spread. And in that situation, that was a sensitive topic because a lot of people were talking about how Druid was garbage. But I actually think that Rax did a reasonable job about what he was mad about or what he was kind of frustrated with, which is he specifically called out the hurricane spell. That was the whole meme. That's why it spread. And that spell just did not do a lot of damage. And I think if you focus in on that critique and you focus in on actually what he was kind of conveying, there's two things in my opinion that he was conveying. First off was there were certain spells that were really undertuned, and I absolutely agree with this. The second thing was that the leveling process was really poor, not just because some of the spells were undertuned, but because also the general experience felt pretty mediocre. And I completely agree with these two criticisms. For one, I think that every class, no matter what skills you decide to run, should be really easy to be able to beat the early game content. Second, I think that generally speaking, the melee classes in the game had a really, really rough time against a lot of the bosses because they weren't designed for melee encounters, okay? And so I think Rax was perfectly on base. You could critique the fact that he didn't put more of a disclaimer or, kind of, I guess you'd say, cover his back in terms of people misinterpreting and the nuance of it. But I don't think that's necessarily his job. I'm of the opinion that you are responsible for what you say, not for what people interpret what you say. Okay, so if I say something like, I think the Druid is mediocre, and here's the reason why, and I talk about the hurricane spell, and I talk about the leveling process, and then people go and say, well, the Druid's trash, they need a massive buff, and they don't do any damage. That is what people interpreted from that, which is not true, right? I proved this in my landslide Druid build where I killed a boss in literally 6 seconds, and I also went through and did a ton of damage throughout the dungeon with that build. So the Druid had options, but the process to getting there was more difficult than any other class. And that I could say for a fact in my anecdotal evidence. And so I think that when you say something like, yeah, here's a critique of a character or a class or a build or even the developers, and here's exactly what I say, and then people expand upon that, it's not his fault. And it's not my fault. And in fact, it's not Hog's fault either. But what I can say is I can hold him accountable for his words. And although he put a discretion warning, I think there's a difference between a discretion warning and just like actually attacking someone. And he was just actually attacking Rax, which I just think is bad. I don't like that. Yeah, I actually kind of enjoy his candor, Hog's candor here, and the type of content that are kind of rant videos that he makes. I think it's actually pretty funny. At the same time, I think no one should be insulting other viewers, other content creators, unless they're going to come at you first. Then I can see a little bit of a reason for it. But in this situation, Rax is just making his commentary. A couple other things before I end this video, guys, because I want to hear what you have to say. First off, Rax, comment on the video. Great video, man. Excellent points. I think it was a pretty reasonable response. You can't really say much. If he was reacting to me in that way, there's not much I could say, because if he's gonna call me out for a liar about how much time I've played, anything I say doesn't matter. Also, the dislike ratio on this video is pretty heavy. Not the worst I've seen, but definitely pretty bad out there. Seems a lot of people agree. Here's what I'll say about Hog's sentiment. I agree with his baseline point, which is that negative information spreads quickly, and oftentimes it's best for the community to quell or provide as much context as you possibly can. If you can, that's great. However, The point I disagree with is you're not held accountable for people's mass misinterpretation, because that is just how media works. And at the same time, don't go around insulting people for having a different opinion than you, because that's the baseline of what this is. A ton of people think the druid is bad, and he's insulting Rax for that reason. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I thought this was interesting. I know it was a longer one, but I wanted to talk about the hate in Diablo community and how it just keeps on going and going. I'll be back with more Diablo content tomorrow, and I'll see you all for the next one.